Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you all here to join me and to have the chance to meet Charlotte Newman, who I'm really looking forward to introducing you to. My name is Mary Rose Gunn. I'm the founder and chief exec of the Fore, and the Fore is on a mission to turbocharge exceptional small charities and social enterprises that are transforming lives in society. As I'm sure most of you know, we offer unrestricted grant funding and access to a whole range of non-financial support, so training, expertise, networks, impact measurement help, skilled volunteers, all sorts of things in addition to the funding that we provide to the charities we support. We have now got a portfolio of over 500 charities who are all, like Charlotte at Carefree, doing amazing things. And we are really excited to have the chance again today to give you an opportunity to get to know Charlotte a bit better, get to know what Carefree are doing, and to give you an opportunity to ask questions as well. So I'm just going to introduce Carefree, and I'm going to say a little bit about it because I think I will be able to boast about what Carefree are doing more than Charlotte will, because she's far too modest a person. But I am delighted to be joined by her today. She is one of the founding staff members of Carefree and the founding CEO, basically. And it was set up in 2017 as a reaction to the fact that there are 9 million unpaid carers in the UK. 2 million of those unpaid carers are actually full-time, and 46% of those have not had a break in 5 years, despite the fact that they provide over 130 billion worth of value to UK society on an annual basis. So Carefree was set up to connect these unpaid carers with the opportunity to have some time off on a free holiday, basically, which is provided through the fact that there is enormous amounts of accommodation out there that is unfilled. And in a good caring sharing economy, we can share that empty hotel and holiday accommodation with people who really deserve to have a break. Carefree has 18,000 service users. It's a small charity with a national reach, basically. And last year, they organised over 1,500 breaks. This year, they are nearly at 3,500, I think, is where they're at, Charlotte. You can confirm or deny that.
3,553 this morning.
Congratulations, that has gone up since we spoke a couple of weeks ago. 3,553. That is amazing. And they have an extremely advanced tech platform, basically, that does this. It connects their service users with breaks and also has a sort of digital tracking and monitoring and mentoring system, which Charlotte can tell us a bit more about if you're interested, that looks after the carers along the way. So even though they're digital, they have very strong relationships with their service users. Charlotte, would you like to just tell us a little bit more about Carefree and flesh out a little bit about what you do? And then we are going to have a chat today about, Charlotte and I caught up a couple of weeks ago, and I think what's most interesting is talking about your funding model and challenges of being a disruptor in the sector. And I know we've got some people on here today who are running organisations working in the care sector. So I think they might be quite interested to hear about some of that. But anyway, over to you to tell us a bit more about Carefree.
Yeah, great to have this audience here today, and particularly those working in the care sector. Thank you for joining. So I think the first thing to say about Carefree is that we set out with a massive ambition, and not many charities get to do that because they are playing parts in existing systems, really trying to meet the needs of service users that are kind of knocking at their door with stuff that's kind of already in motion. And for us, we were tapping into an issue where there actually wasn't really any activity. There seemed to be a possibility for carers to get access to overnight respite because it was going to be so expensive. But actually, if you take away the cost of the accommodation, suddenly you've got a whole different paradigm and space to play with. And that's what we saw with being able to mobilise all of the donated accommodation that is potentially out there. we have a very small team. So, you know, there is a CTO, there's myself, there's somebody working with the hospitality partners, there's 2 people on customer service, and there's 1 person working with community partners and another person on product and operations. But overall, the journey of building up an organization like this has been carried out in a context where you would usually have kind of 5 person per team to work on each different area, and we've just been relying on 1 person to build up mountains and mountains of infrastructure for the delivery of this model. And so I think there's something there about when people are really focused on a mission, it's amazing what they can achieve with kind of almost creating their own fuel behind them and putting their own vision into action of how something can operate. And the volume of service users that we have now speaks to that. You know, we are adding nearly 1,000 new service users a month, and our customer service team of 1.5 people is not going to change in how many staff we have running that. So they are really having to kind of bootstrap and find ways to keep that customer service infrastructure flowing in a way that meets a carer at every point in their journey as possible, without having the range to be able to kind of up the money we spend on these things. And that's what's very special about the work that small charities do and the innovation that we deliver.
Charlotte, you have sort of gone some way already to explaining a bit of the challenges, but I remember you mentioned it to me as one of your biggest issues is that you are a small charity, but basically delivering a big charity's mission. And how you fund that and how the model looks like it's funny is a big part of the challenge. What would you like to give us a few more details about how Carefree is funded and what your challenges are, and yeah, explain a bit about where you're looking to go in future in terms of funding?
Yeah, absolutely. And I apologize, there is some background noise here. I'm on a meditation retreat at the moment, and and I've snuck into the office of the retreat center to do the talk. So on the funding piece, you know, we found that kind of going out into the market with a vision and with innovation is something that is kind of the easiest part of the journey to do. People can get very excited about a new innovation, a new possibility of scaling a solution. And when you kind of get past that first year and a half, suddenly you're in the realm of hitting into the realities of the grant funding sector and how you continue to sustain your operation. Now, most organizations will require you to kind of have 3 years worth of accounts before you can apply for bigger amounts of funding. There's also issues on if you are delivering a digital service in particular, that you know that's going to be less natural, less native for a lot of funders out there in terms of, you know, feeling confident in backing what you're doing. And so you tend to fund out of kind of funder guidelines. And that's kind of a real problem in terms of generating new grants, or particularly grants to sustain a growing operation. And then the third thing is the question of the pressure that many charities are facing now to create self-sustaining business models. And certainly with Carefree, we had always envisaged that we would have an earned income stream, you know, within a mixed income model of grants and donations. And that income stream is that we charge £25 for a break, for each break that we facilitate. And that can be paid for by the carer or a community partner that has referred them. But that income stream is not really going to cover anything towards our kind of full costs, and particularly if your cost base is growing as you are growing. And you need to find ways to modulate through that journey. A big thing for us has been, where is the 6-figure capital in the sector? Particularly on a digital intervention where you are needing to be able to kind of really scale up what you're doing very, very quickly and moving with the growth and the traction that you're seeing. There just hasn't been any of that out there for the last few years, other than the National Lottery Digital Fund funding, which we were lucky enough to be a part of 4 years ago. As a result, a lot of charities will turn towards looking to social investment as a means for kind of giving them the leverage points upwards. And then, of course, you start to track into, okay, what's the logic behind the social investment sector in the UK? How is it functioning? How is it working? And what are the kind of pitfalls and opportunities that go with that journey? And we've certainly been in the space now where we had some initial social investment that was fantastic for providing us with security through the pandemic so that we could keep building the technology that was needed to underpin our platform. But going out into the market, we still need that kind of next level up. And in a business context, it's perfectly reasonable for a growing business to require to take on new financing to accelerate its, market share or growth journey. But in a charity context, if you are having debt sitting on your books, adding any more debt into it is seen as kind of a massive no-no. And that's just really difficult because nobody's looking at, okay, well, what's actually the repayment plan that they have on that existing financing? Is it practicable for them? Where does new financing come into that picture? How are they going to be able to afford it? We need more sensible conversations rather than rule of thumb conversations where, if you have, existing social investment, it's very hard to pick up the next level of social investment because, oh, look, you're already carrying a lot of debt against your organization.
Which is, I mean, this is something that I find so crazy, is because in the commercial sector, if you would, if someone has investment, you'd see that as a really good sign rather than as something that was negative. It's something that, it's definitely a circle that we have not squared, or whatever that phrase, that's not the phrase, but, because it's crazy. Keep going.
No, the other thing is that it used to be that, I mean, I started working in the social investment sector far too many years ago. But at the time, it was all about social impact bonds, and it was the social return on investment that you were generating. And with Carefree, I've never seen a clearer case of social return investment. Every break that we facilitate is valued at £275 in terms of the gifted accommodation value. So we are literally leveraging millions of pounds worth of gifted accommodation. And it used to be that would be offset against what you'd have to repay in terms of your repayment finance. Absolutely not the case now. You will be very lucky if you can get a financing package for 8% or less in terms of interest payments. And a lot of my personal belief is that, I understand why the social investment sector is locked and that these interest rates probably aren't going to change. But let's take a more long-term view. Let's make the repayment plans 10 years. Let's give charities the chance to access that finance instead of having lots and lots of capital locked in the social investment sector that they're not able to distribute because charities aren't viewed as being financially risk of a low enough risk to be able to access it.
I think it's something that is a huge irony as well for me, that while on the one hand, everybody wants to fund innovation and everyone in the sector is constantly being told to be more tech savvy and use more digital technology in what they're doing. And it's something that the charity sector is frequently kind of berated for. But then when you have amazing tech solutions like Carefree, you find it so hard to raise support, or you get the initial sort of flurry of interest and backing, and then the ongoing stuff that you need to really build out what you're doing is just not available. And how much do you think that is because actually the funding sector hasn't really caught up with it and isn't really very honest with itself about the fact that it is still quite tied to the kind of emotional heartstrings, and what you're doing is creating an incredible return on investment, but it doesn't feel like, for funders sometimes, it doesn't feel like they're paying for somebody to kind of mop somebody's brow. They're paying for a tech thing, which is quite a head investment type of philanthropic support, rather than the thing that is much more of an emotional pull. Do you think that is part of the issue?
Lots of thoughts about this. I mean, one thing that immediately springs to mind is a bit of an analogy. So if you are buying a digital product or service, the job of that company is to retain you as a customer. So, you've purchased a subscription to Headspace app, for example, and, Headspace is going to do everything it can to keep you using its service and to keep you delivering its benefit to you. So, it's going to send you some reminders to say, have you meditated today? Why don't you try this new meditation? Why don't you try that? everything is set up within these kind of tech and product-led companies to engage their service users and to keep them within that ecosystem of using that service. And to me, when I look at the quality of the digital intervention that we're delivering, we have done the same thing. You know, we have an incredible digital architecture for connecting with the carers that we're supporting to be able to send them. You know, we send out 45,000 proactive messages to carers within a few weeks with our intercom systems. You know, really trying to kind of keep pushing the button, understand we know exactly where every single person is in their journey of using our service. And if they're not moving forwards in that journey, we'll pick up the tab and, you know, say, hey, come on, you know, let's get you a break. And I think what funders are missing in this picture is actually how much, when you're using technology, you are really focusing in on service design, finding what your users' true need is and creating a service that matches that need and meets them at a time and place where they're going to be able to access it and use it. And in that sense, you are delivering a quality of service that is not seen in other organizations. And so I really would love funders to think, just take those next steps of thought through, you know,
Yeah.
what their underlying assumptions are, and do those underlying assumptions ring true. There is also a lot of misunderstanding about technology and innovation. So one of the things that I have always said in the sector is that the charity sector doesn't need a lot of innovation. What it needs is to be empowered by technology. A lot of us will be delivering the same kind of services to our service users in
Yeah.
different community contexts. We don't need to be doing different things. We just need formulas and service recipes for how we do those things and the right digital tools for delivering those things.
Mm.
And Carefree is a specialist in using what's called no-code software to, you know, piece together lots of different tech functionality and digital functionality, but without us taking on the cost of building products from scratch and doing a code journey from scratch. And no charity is in a position to have a team of software engineers, user designers, product managers, carrying technical debt, code, infrastructure. I mean, those are the things that set charities up for failure. What we have shown at Carefree is that you can use off-the-shelf digital products and services to deliver something that feels incredibly human and incredibly personalized to your service users, that's at a low and manageable cost, and can be used by staff who aren't naturally digital themselves. You know, we do not have a coder on our team, but we are one of the foremost digital charities in the UK. You know, tech isn't what you think it is.
Yeah, that's an amazing call to action, I think, for everybody, is because I think it can be quite, tech can be quite frightening for charities, and to know that you yourselves are actually, essentially what it sounds like is that, you know, you've taken semi off the shelf products and translated them to huge effect, is something that I think it's really inspiring to hear and for other people to hear. Going back to some of the challenges that you're facing, I'd love to ask you a bit more about the challenges, because I think this will be really relevant to, I know we've got some of our other portfolio charities on this call. Hi, Antonia from Ewan's Guide. And for example, talk about the challenges of being a disruptor in the charity sector. And I mean, this is something that's very close to my heart, because what we're trying to do at the Fore is, you know, similar. We're trying to disrupt the funding sector as opposed to the carer sector. But I'm really interested to hear some thoughts from you on why it's so difficult to be a disruptor in the charity sector, in a way that I think it's actually different from the commercial sector.
Yeah, and I think that Carefree sits in two worlds. You know, on the one hand, you know, I know a lot of the kind of the carer tech CEOs from the kind of the for-profit startups that are entering in the space, and on the other hand, I'm surrounded by, you know, people working in kind of care support organizations and national carer charities as well. So we do sit with our feet on two sides. I have always wanted Carefree to be I feel there's a lot of responsibility that comes with being a disruptor in the space, actually, and that we need to create positive challenge rather than negative challenge. So a key part or jigsaw piece in our model was that we could have just done this where we had a self-referral pathway to sign up carers, and we had the pathways for hotels to distribute their unsold hotel rooms via our platform and do a straightforward matching proposition. We proactively chose to create community referral pathways for existing care support organisations to take part in the initiative to refer carers within their service, because we wanted to create a joined up intervention with the existing social sector. That, in actual fact, cost us a lot of money that we didn't have to make that choice. We have spent hundreds of thousands servicing those community pathways, and we've just this year had to introduce a small membership fee to those organisations, because we can't hold up that kind of side of our operation without their support to deliver it. But we were very, very clear from the beginning that we needed to join to the sector as best that we could to strengthen the existing sector. And we have a set of business values at Carefree, and one of them is community commitment. So how are we operating within the community of the care space, within the community of the funding space, within the community of the digital space, and how are we positively contributing in all of those ways? Where I feel the issue of being a disruptor is most stuck or most challenging is very much at the policy level. And I say that because a lot of the issues surrounding how we provide support and resources for unpaid carers is stuck at the policy level, because you have so many millions of people providing unpaid care. The government isn't able to provide them with, a minimum wage for their work or anything like that. The carers allowance is only going to a few 100,000 people, and even that is only £76 a week. It's less than job seekers allowance. And so a lot of the policy and advocacy work within the government is all about campaigns to get the government to commit to, better rights for carers, absolutely needed, but also committing more money to carers, which is where they just go, we can't do that. And Carefree is obviously working off kind of more of a caring economy model, where we're saying, look, there are other resources within society that can be utilised, and we just need the pathways to distribute those resources to carers effectively, which is why Carefree has been able to switch on a national supply of gifted inventory, almost instantaneously, when there was previously no provision. I think the most provision that there was for carers on carer breaks was there was one charity that did a fundraising pot where they were able to buy about 600 breaks per year, but that cost about £400,000 to buy those breaks. The Department of Health and Social Care also did an initiative where post-pandemic they bought 800 carer breaks, and that cost £600,000. And so what you find with these previous models is they're not scalable at all. They're only going to be able to reach a few hundred people, whereas we have kind of exponential potential on how many breaks that we can unlock within the hotel industry. And it's with that issue on how do you reconceptualize resource? How do you reconceptualize systems? How do you do redistribution within the economy? That piece is where we find we get stuck, because it's asking a lot of existing organisations to change their mindsets and change their way of thinking and step away from the traditional advocacy and policy strategies that they've been using for a number of years.
I mean, I think this is a problem that we find so many of our portfolio charities come up against, is that you don't have a route you need a direct route into policymakers, and it's very difficult to get that when you are the small player on the ground, and there are much larger players who have been operating for such a long time and are so embedded within the sector. And it's something that we are looking at how we can do more, I think, to try and advocate and give people like Carefree a platform so that you have the chance to get in and talk to policymakers. Because are there any ways that you have found that you've been able to circumnavigate things and get into the conversations and the rooms that you want? Have you got any tips? And I also kind of potentially open that up to everyone else on the call. Is there anyone else who is disrupting and has managed to get their voice heard in a way that it might be interesting to share. But Charlotte,
I think
first.
capacity in yeah, the capacity in your first few years is the difficult thing, because on the first few
Yeah.
years you are really focused on what's going on inside the organization rather than what's going on outside the organization. And I hope that, we're just kind of 6 years old now. I hope that in the next 4 years I will be able to do a lot more on the public facing side. Media attention is a very, very big part of the jigsaw puzzle, which we have not been able to crack, and we've been surprised by. We sent out a press release kind of post-pandemic, being like 5 hotel groups giving away thousands of breaks to unpaid carers, all across the country, and we were like, this is post-pandemic. Why would nobody pick up this news story? But nobody picked up the news story.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, just a responsibility of the media industry to give smaller organizations and more unique voices a platform, rather than just kind of, if I'm being honest, like the lazy thing of just, oh, here I need somebody to give a comment on social care. Here's my existing Black Book of contacts. I'm just gonna dial
Yeah.
up for a comment. There are other voices out there, but they need to come find us as well.
Yeah, I mean, with all of these things, but a big part of the challenge is, I think, the media is under so much budgetary pressure. There are so few journalists now. It makes everything so much harder, because yes, they don't have the time to do the research, so it's much easier for them to just go to the big players. And yeah, we need to have the chance to kind of jump up and down a bit more, but there are so many responsibilities on your shoulders as the chief exec of a small charity. That is just one more thing that you often, I think, one just doesn't have time for. But you talk a bit when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about the importance of not just engaging with existing audiences, about engaging with future audiences. And that was also, I think, something that I felt was a really interesting topic to bring up, because it's so relevant to everybody who is working in our space. You're obviously, your audiences, particularly carers, but with whoever people are working with. And I'd love to draw you out a little bit on that.
Yeah, well, I think the future audiences for us fall into two categories, really. The first is, I think, as a society, people are really unprepared for when caring responsibilities fall on their shoulders. And so we need to be, I guess, really raising this as a national conversation, so that people understand this can happen to you at any point in your life. 3 in 5 of us will be a carer at some point. What does that mean, and how can you plan for it? And something like Carefree, we almost see as that kind of future piggy bank, particularly if those kind of future carers might wish to become donors to the organization. You're helping an organization to exist that will one day provide you a break when you need it, once it becomes your turn to care. But also more generally, I think that the sector is experiencing such a deep financial loss in terms of the level of funding that's just been sucked out over the last few years, and there isn't the same sense of charitable giving and purpose and kind of structure to how people think about giving to charity that they used to. That we need to be generating the next generation of philanthropists, and they need to find organizations that they can believe in and want to support and back, from these early incremental years all the way through to them being, the next generation of national and well-known charities. And I think one of the reasons why we're having such a problem in the generational shift of where are the new donors coming from is that, ultimately it's probably the same 50 charities that everybody knows that still grab all of the media, media and marketing spotlight, because they'll have an 800-person fundraising team, and they'll have posters on bus stops. And, unfortunately, that is, there's a sense of like, well, the charity sector doesn't need our help. And it's like, no, there's lots of charities that need your help, but they're not going to be the people that are
The names
banging down your door of, and the names of.
Yeah. I mean, this is an issue that's incredibly close to our hearts at the Fore, and it's something that I am really personally very concerned about, because it's got much worse since the pandemic, in terms of there are 169,000 charities out there in the sector. 156,000 of them, that's 92%, have got turnover of under £500,000, but yet they only get 7.5% of the sector's income. The big charities are really cleaning up, and the statistics have got significantly, they were getting gently worse over the last 20 years, but they have had an acceleration in negative direction post-COVID, which is just, for me, pretty heartbreaking, because the small charities were the ones that were out there saving lives basically during COVID. They knew their communities, they knew how to help people, and they knew how to get support in that was needed. But actually, the public aren't at the moment able to find the ways to support them in the ways that they used to. Because I think you're absolutely right. The sort of technological and shifts in how money is, people don't carry cash anymore. People don't donate in the same way that they used to. And we haven't yet, as a small charity sector, I think, managed to kind of catch up with that and work out new ways of engaging. And it's a huge ongoing challenge for us all. And also small charities, all of the huge institutional funding, small charities just aren't able to access it in the way that the big ones are, with their, as you say, 800-person fundraising teams. And it's a massive challenge.
There is something there about, in the pandemic, we all went to Shop Local, right? And Shop Local has been a really successful campaign. You could see a side-by-side campaign that said Shop Local, Give Local.
Yeah.
I remember going to, I don't know, a local grocer, and, they would say to me, oh, do you want to add £5 to your bill to give to Lewisham Women's Shelter? And I'd be like, yeah, every time. And just the fact that that local business was organising a donation drive to a local charity where they were kind of connected to, it was just like the best giving experience I've ever had, and I absolutely loved it. And we do find that grant funders are going much more local in their giving, and that can be a really good thing. It also cuts across the idea of scalable national interventions like something like Carefree, because it doesn't answer any problems for us. But I do think it would be amazing to have Shop Local, Give Local. Let's get businesses finding local charities that they're going to put a drive behind, and actually making it a joined up user journey for those donation processes.
That's a really exciting idea. Wondering who we might be able to call to try and make that happen. Would we got some people on here who might like to ask Charlotte a question or make a comment about some of the things that we've been talking about? Is that Antonia? Please do go for it. Please do come on camera.
Hi, Charlotte. So I'm Ewan's Guide. We're the disabled access charity, and we're best known for our website, which is ewansguide.com, which is disabled access reviews. So people kind of compare us a little bit like a TripAdvisor, but concentrating on disabled access. So it's not really a question. It's just to say so much of what you just said resonates with me. I've even made a little list. We straddle the thing between the tech startup and the charity, advantages and disadvantages of both. We find it very difficult to get things into the media unless it's bad news, and we don't want to be a bad news. We don't want to amplify that. Definitely agree with funders not funding tech, not really understanding it. Definitely agree with some of the first times we went for funding, we were too new, not proven. Now we're not innovative enough because we've been around for a while. And I think just one of the things that we have done that's worked really well for us is our access survey. So we started that so we've just closed actually the 9th one, and we've now got over 6,000 people that respond to that. 98% of whom identify as a disabled person. But just, sorry, can you hear me all right? There's another conversation going on. Yeah, okay. And that's, I was just writing out about it in our annual report, actually. Just, it's enabled us to not only get our voice into the media and also the voice of our community, but enable us to start playing with the bigger players a little bit more. So, we've got, nobody else has a survey anywhere near that size in the UK. particularly completed by disabled people, carers, friends, family members, paid carers as well. So yeah, that's one of the things that we do, and it's helped us get into the media, helped us amplify the voice of our community, and also we use it to prove that there is a need for Ewan's Guide, and to prove that it works. So 46% of people that have used Ewan's Guide in the survey said that they've used it, that it has helped them find new places to go. So it really helps us with that as well. So that was, but it took us a long time to establish that. We just started it as how to hear from our community, and then 9 years later, we're actually able to use it for loads more bits.
That is wonderful. I will certainly be, we do kind of feedback surveys that have a lot of unique data, because nobody else is actually delivering carer breaks. So we'll definitely see the next stage of that journey. But also just to say that the census numbers are a lot lower than this, but actually 56% of the carers that we service identify as having a disability themselves. So we should also be doing some signposting to Ewan's Guide within our website too.
Brilliant. I'll give you a shout after this. Thanks, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Antonia, thanks so much. That's really interesting and kind of echoes a lot of, we've just taken on some PR support for the Fore with what we're trying to do, and we are beginning to get somewhere, I think, hopefully with some media coverage for what we're trying to do. But a lot of the advice that we took, or we got, having had lots of conversations with lots of different people about communications and profile raising, was around that if you can have that one piece of research that you publish on an annual basis, and you are the kind of go-to source for a certain level of information on a certain sector, it's an incredibly powerful way to get yourself heard. So yeah, Antonia, you're absolutely epitomizing that. Well done. We haven't cracked it. We need to, so congratulations. That's brilliant. We had Dorothy, I think, wanted to ask a question. Dorothy, are you there? Was it?
No, it's fine. That's my question's gone now. Just to say, I think it's absolutely fantastic the work that's being done. We do struggle to get respite and identify respite for the people that we support. So knowing that Carefree is there and is doing really, really well, it's really inspirational for us, and definitely we'll be in contact at some point to move something forward with yourselves.
Well, Dorothy, may I ask where you're from?
Oh, we're from the African Caribbean Care Group, and we are actually based in Manchester, supporting older people and carers in particular with living generally. And the people really do struggle to get respite, and so this is really, really fantastic to hear that your service is out there and could be a model for us to follow.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Dorothy. That's great that hopefully you've made some useful connections today. Charlotte, we're due to finish in 3 minutes. Is there anything that you'd like to really kind of give as a call to action to people who are either running organizations like yours, and to sort of, it's really tough out there at the moment. We are having a lot of conversations that really concern us around burnout in social entrepreneurs, and as we're talking about, the funding landscape at the moment is very, very difficult to navigate. Yeah, is there anything that you feel something that you can share that, well, either positive or negative, or else that you might want to give a call to action to funders and to the social investment sector before we finish, as your parting?
Yeah, I think this is just one of the big digital lessons is if something isn't working, change it. And I think we know all the answers that we need to know at so many different levels. One answer for me, as I've said on social investment, is let's do a campaign to make it a 10-year repayment term, and then you will have far more organisations being able to access that money, and you'll be able to take out a lot of the negative impacts of there being high interest rates, and you'll make that finance far more affordable. With funders, make your funding unrestricted. it is extremely hard to be working on a project basis and to be able to move your organizations forward. And you need to trust us to make the right spending choices with your finances, because we can move the money to where it's needed most, and and to make the most impact and progress. And then for charities, embrace no code. It is very, very easy to quickly uplift your operations and make things a lot easier for your staff, so they have far more time to be spending time on the human stuff, not on the admin stuff. So have a look at something. There's the catalyst.org.uk, which has a whole kind of mine of resources for you on how to kind of start doing digital and no code. And it's really easy to kind of create some small quick wins in this entire sector that I think would just turn the tide. And that's where my hope lies, that we just kind of apply some common sense and we back that common sense, and we stick with it, and we say, okay, we've done this way for so many years, let's try doing it this way for even 1 year and see what happens.
Charlotte, thank you so much. I think for me, the kind of greatest pleasure of doing these conversations is that however tough people are finding it, the social entrepreneurs that run the charities that we back, we are pretty much without fail, you are all optimists. You wouldn't be doing what you were doing if you didn't believe that change was possible. And I'm just always inspired, and I hope everyone else who's been listening to this is also inspired by Charlotte and what you're doing and your positivity and the incredible social impact that you're having. And this is the last one of these before Christmas. So I'd just like to say thank you to Charlotte. Thank you to everyone for listening. Have a happy Christmas. I hope you all have a proper break. And Charlotte, you enjoy your last day of meditation. But thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you for having me.
Lovely to speak. Goodbye.